I don't know what just happened to our countdown there, but apparently it ran short and it flipped us. And yeah, here we are. Here we are. I thought I could get out one last little hack before we got in there, and apparently not. Apparently not there. So we are live tonight here on this Sunday. It's a great Sunday. Well, I shouldn't say great. Uh, it's a subpar Sunday, and we're going to get into it tonight here on the show. We want to talk about that Packers game. And wow, it was what we've seen all season long. Let's just go with that. Against good teams, against the top 3 seeds of what's going to be in the NFC, this is what we've seen all season long. So it's put a lot of question marks on this Packers team. A lot of question marks, I guess, we were feeling good about heading into this one, we no longer feel good about. So we're going to get into that, talk a little Bucks, Brewers. They fleeced that Burns deal. We want to get into that later on in the show here. So we got lots to get into tonight. But I got Aaron with me tonight on the show. Aaron, how we doing on this Sunday? Your Eagles got the big win. They completely obliterated the Cowboys. So, I mean, you're feeling good.
Yeah, I can't lie to you. I mean, it's, and not to add insult to injury. I know the Packers, have you in a little bit of a sore spot. I know how that is. Trust me. It's not like we're even getting the 1 seed. So I mean, there's work to be done. But I mean, I've always been a Kenny Pickett guy, man. So as much as he, at times looks like the worst quarterback to ever play, I just there's something about the guy. I've rooted for him. I even rooted for him at Pitt, and I hate Pitt. So I just seeing him go out there, and then it sucks he can't even finish the game. But yeah, I mean, whenever you beat up on Dallas, I mean, Dallas fans now are just saying, oh well. We pretty much punted the rest of the year anyway. No, you didn't. Now it's excuses. So just beating those people, beating that team and their fan base and a bunch of crybabies is always good. So yeah, no pun intended, flying pretty high, but yeah, I mean we're not even in the play. Yes, we won the division, but we'll see. The playoffs picture is changing. Game by game, like things can happen. So it's just We'll wait and see, but this week at least was all right. Was pretty good.
They locked up the 2 seed though, right? I think for sure they locked up that 2 seed, which is, I mean, good, I guess. Good for the Eagles there. It's going to be between Minnesota and the Lions next week to decide the number 1 seed. And, Dustin was on it the other day. He said, if the Vikings win, and we know it, it's going to be because you'll know the NFL is rigged if the Vikings win this game. And I was like, thought about that today. I was like, maybe, just maybe, that they had that encroachment call on Edgerrin Cooper and he never really crossed the line. It's like, maybe, just maybe they're trying to throw this game the other way. But, there was a lot, and I've seen people talking about that one call and everything like that. There was a lot of things that went wrong in this game for the Packers that call did not affect this game to that point. I mean, you look at the games the Packers have played against good teams. Look at the first game against Minnesota at home, 28-0. You were in a hole. Against the Lions, 24-3. You went down against the Vikings again. You went down against the Lions again on the road before you came back. So you had another game against the Vikings on the road where you came back late. Not good enough, right? You've had all these games. The Eagles too. I mean, look at the Eagles. They put up 30-plus points on you. You look at all these good teams and what they're able to do on your defense and what your offense has done in those games. Slow starts. I mean, we talked about it after that Lions game on the road. You take those first 3 drives the Packers had against the Lions, and absolutely nothing was cooking. And all of a sudden, they just decided, let's turn it on, right? In this one, they waited until about the 4th quarter before they said, hey, let's do something today. Let's make some magic with nothing. They made it interesting, but then it came down to, can the defense get a stop, right? We're going to get into the defense a little bit more here. But looking at this game, I mean, I want to start right away, right? First drive, you fumble it on the opening drive. Josh Jacobs lays it on the turf there. Terrible start, right? But then your defense gets a stop, forces the Vikings to punt it away. Your next drive, and I don't get it. You go away from the run game. We talked about it. We talked about it from the last matchup. We said the biggest problem we were looking at was Josh Jacobs had limited carries. Where does this Packers team thrive? On the back of Josh Jacobs. Yeah, you want Jordan Love to do his thing and you want the game wreckers to get involved and everything like that. But you got to have your solidified run game if you're the Green Bay Packers. Second drive of the game. after the Vikings just punted it back to you. You start at your own 15-yard line. First play, incomplete pass to Romeo Doubs. Second play, you try to take a shot to Wicks. Incomplete. Third play, yes. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was a drop pass. I believe Wicks dropped the pass there on that drive. It was catchable, sure. It was catchable, but wasn't a great throw, right? But 3 straight pass attempts, and then you punt the ball back to him. I don't know what. You're on the 15-yard line, your own 15. I get Josh Jacobs just fumbled the football. I understand that. But what does that mean? Go away from him? Your star running back. I mean, if I was an Eagles fan, I'd be pissed if the Eagles went away from Saquon Barkley just because he fumbled the ball the drive before. Now, I'm not going to say that's the reason why they went away from him on that second drive. But you know what? I'd be pissed if the Eagles went through a drive without giving the ball to Saquon Barkley and it went 3 and out. I'd be pissed. I would be irate. Same with Derrick Henry. Same with Bijan Robinson for the Falcons, right? Same with Josh Jacobs. How do you go through a drive and you go 3 and out and Josh Jacobs doesn't touch the football? That is ridiculous. He better have had some kind of injury. There must have been something that they were seeing. I don't know what it was. They were going to stint you. They were going to throw stunts at you all game long. They were going to make it look like they were bringing heat all the time. So what were you going to do? Just go away from the run game? That was your plan? That was the big, bright plan, was just go away from it? They went back to it, yeah. But that second drive just irritates me so much. I mean, Aaron, you're hearing it. We talked about it. We're like, what can you not do? Go away from Josh Jacobs. What did they do? Went away from Josh Jacobs on the second drive of the game. That's where you get back into it, right? You just fumbled it. You get the ball back. Your defense gets to stop. You get the ball back, and then you end up going 3 and out. What kind of statement are you making?
Yeah, I mean, and then you put a guy that's probably, I mean, you know, they're all human. Like, as good as players these are, and you know, they block out the outside noise. If you're Josh Jacobs, you're probably thinking like, okay, yeah, like give me the rock again. But you know, when you don't get it 3 straight times, you're probably looking at LaFleur, you're probably looking at the OC, like, okay, what's up? You know what I mean? Don't take me out of the game plan just because I made a mistake. Like, now you're almost thinking more. Like, and when he gets the ball, he's probably pressing a little bit more because it's like, okay, I see how it is. If I make a mistake in a big game, you know, like all those psychological things. Like, I'd almost give him the ball on first down just to ensure, hey, you know, we got, you know, mistakes happen. You don't want to see it. You know, it's not like we're not going to make excuses for it, but you know, you're all human. You make a mistake. I almost give it to him on first down just to say, you know, hey, we got your back. You know, like get back in there and figure it out. And yeah, I mean, that doesn't send the best message. I mean, watching, you know, I didn't get to see every minute of this game, but bits and pieces, and like kind of watching it as we're talking here, a lot of it that I missed. I mean, Minnesota's defense just had extreme, like you could just tell they had so much confidence. Like early on, they're just flying around, like they're going 100 miles an hour. The pass rush was crazy early on. So to negate that, slow down the game, you want to get Josh Jacobs involved and, you know, just kind of settle things at, like, we talk about the Packers settling in the game sometimes, which has been, you know, a little bit of a problem. Like, settle into the game, get a little bit of a drive going. Don't just – when you go 3 and out on 3 pass attempts, your defense is probably like, come on, man. Like, we just got off. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow. I don't care what team it is. That's a hard you know, adjustment where it's like, okay, we're right back out there right after we just, you know, came off the field. Because – I mean, with pass plays, you know, if you're not letting the play clock run down, I mean, it's like boom, 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 and then punt like right away.
Yep.
So,
yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, like you're saying, three straight passes and you're off the field just like that. And then you give the ball right back to him. You're not settling into a game like you mentioned. You're not settling into that game. You're just, I don't know, trying to go with the flow of it, right? The Vikings want you to throw the football. That's what they want. They want you to see what they're bringing and say, we're not going to send Josh Jacobs up there because he's just going to get cracked in the hole. Let's try to throw the ball a little bit, right? And how'd that work? How'd it work out? You can't go away from it. It irritates the crap out of me. But, Aaron, I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to dive deeper into this game here in a minute, but I'll be honest with you right now. The Packers are the 3rd best team in the NFC North. I know we were trying to argue it. We were trying to say, you know, the Packers, Vikings, they're on the same level, and the Lions were right above them. And then all of a sudden the Lions got that injury problems. And then we're like, okay, now the playing field's kind of leveling there. The Packers are the 3rd best team in the NFC North right now. I mean, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I do. I really do. But we've seen it now I mean, look at the games they've played, right? Look who they've lost to. Where's your difference make? I mean, they lost to the Eagles in the opening game. Now it's the opening game, so you try to, get bits and pieces out of that. You're still getting into the feel. The second game against the Vikings, or the first game against the Vikings there, Jordan Love was just coming back, but you lose that one. You lost to the Lions 24-14 at home. You go on the road, you lose by 3 to the Lions, and then you have this game against the Vikings on the road where, I mean, you didn't look good. Your offense didn't look good. There was moments, right? There was moments when they went up tempo. When they were up tempo, it looked good. But it's like you cannot run up tempo the entire game. You're going to be gassed by the second quarter. You got to be able to slow things down. And when they slow things down, it just doesn't work. So then it comes back to, are we blaming Matt LaFleur? Because that's a question I have for the day too, is are we blaming Matt LaFleur for his play calling? I think so, because there were some questionable play calls. We talked about that on the second drive where they went 3 straight pass plays. I'm getting, you know what? I don't even care. I'm getting Josh Jacobs' confidence back on the first play of the second drive. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm doing. Exactly. I'm giving him the football, and I'm saying, run that baby straight ahead, get me 4 yards, and let's set this drive up right. You're on the 15. You're on your own 15-yard line. You're at the second drive of the game. You're not trying to go up tempo. You're not trying to get the ball down the field fast. It's a nothing game. Your defense just held the stand for you. Give them a break. Start a drive, right? We talk about it all the time. Time of possession, controlling the clock. You talk about the playmakers, and everybody wants to talk about playmakers. They have a boatload, right? Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson. They have all the playmakers in the world. How do you stop them, right? You don't. But the easiest way, keep them on the sideline. Keep them over there, right? Don't let them get on the field. Don't let them beat you. Now, today it was Naylor. Josh Naylor comes out of nowhere and just, catches everything in his sight against the Packers. That kind of hurts you, right? But, outside of that, it's keeping them on the sideline. And I thought at times the play calling in this one, you watch them, and it's second down, and we're sending 4 guys deep on deep cross routes, whatever it is. And I'm like, we got 5 yards to go. Why are we trying to burn them deep right now? Why not just take a little dump pass here, get those 5 yards, and just move the chains? What are we doing right now? And, you look at the targets in this one. And Jayden Reed, once again, Jayden Reed's struggling dropping the football right now, but he had 1 catch in the entire game there for 6 yards. That's one of your big playmakers, right? We said it going into this. Give it to the psychos, the beaters, right? The ones that your playmakers. Tucker Kraft. He had a good day, right? 2 catches for 53 yards. 2 catches for 53 yards is impressive out of a tight end. But 2 catches for 53 yards. He did his thing, right? We have Dontavian Wicks had a pretty good day. Romeo Doubs had a good day. But then you look at Reed. 1 catch on 4 targets for 6 yards. Didn't give you much. Josh Jacobs, 69 yards on the ground on 17 carries. I got to be honest with you. I don't want Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones to have the same amount of carries or close to the same amount of carries in a game there. There are 5 difference in there. Like Josh Jacobs, I want him 20 to 25. Like, that's where I love to see Josh Jacobs. He's at 17 carries here. Now, I know, once again, what is the reason? We dug ourselves a hole. We put ourselves backs against the wall. We're down big, and we have to try to find – it's a 27-10 game, and we got to try to find a way to dig ourselves out of that hole fast. So now Josh Jacobs is a non-factor. It happens so many times repetitively over and over again, and – to this point, right now, this Packers offense, it's hit or miss. It is. It's hit or miss. One drive, I'm like, yeah, Jordan Love is that dude. He can be that dude. And I still say it. He can be that dude. But I don't see it on a drive-by-drive basis, right? Today, I could have honestly told you, Sam Darnold's good. Sam Darnold's good. And you know what? It might be the coaching, right? It might be the coach that he has in the room. It might be the playmakers that he has. It might be the system, right? But Sam Darnold fits that system, and he plays it well. Today, Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur got outclassed. They got outdone. The entire Packers team got outclassed and outdone. This was dominance. I'm not even looking at the final score, because this final score, those were, if you realistically think about it, this was garbage time points. This was garbage time points. The Vikings were just hanging on to a lead. And I know it sounds cliche to say they were just hanging on to a lead. But in all reality, they were hanging on to a lead. Because there was moments in this game where if the Vikings wanted to, they could have picked us apart. Defensively, they could have picked us apart. We're playing this zone defense because we don't have a secondary that can match up with anybody. Now, I know it's hard to match up with the likes of Jefferson, Addison, and, then Naylor goes off. So it's what the heck, right? But, you had that play where he had the touchdown pass. How does he get wide open going over the top there and nobody's in the area code? Nobody even knows where Naylor's at. Who blew the coverage there, right? And in that play at the end there, the Packers needed to stop on that third down. Little Akers pass over the top. Who had Akers? Who was supposed to be out there? The defensive lapses, those little things. It's the little things with the Packers. And we thought, this is where I'm circling back to why I think they're the third best team in the NFC North, is because last season we were like, they're a young team, right? But they're going to grow out of these things. They're going to grow out of the problems, the pre-snap penalties, those little things that we always look at. And we're like, that's the reason why they lose games. And this season, we thought they were growing out of this stuff, right? But in this one, 7 penalties again, pre-snap penalties, illegal formations. Though on a first down, you get an illegal formation, and all of a sudden you got to back it up, back the chains up, right? Offensive holding calls. Those stupid little things in a game that just kill a drive, kill momentum, kill it all. They haven't outgrown that. And it reared its ugly head one more time in a game against the Vikings, in a big game, right? This is a big game because now if the Commanders win tonight, and even if the Packers win next week, I don't know who has the tiebreaker there. I don't know who has the tiebreaker between the Commanders and the Packers to get that seed. Because right now the Packers 11-5. If the Commanders win, they would move to 11-5. And then the Packers got the Bears next week, and the Commanders would have, who the heck do the Commanders play? It must be in division there. Do they have the Cowboys next week?
Let's see.
Who do they play next week, I wonder?
Commanders. Oh, yeah.
Who do they got?
Yeah, Cowboys. Yep.
Cowboys. So they got Cowboys next week. Even if they win that game, I think they might get ahead of the Packers. Because they put head-to-head record, and then they put common opponents, and if they have that win against the Eagles. So I think they would have the head-to-head. So then the Commanders move up to that 6th spot, and now the Packers would drop to the 7. And guess where the Packers got to go week 1 of the playoffs? They're traveling to Philly to take on the Eagles. And that's one place you didn't want to go in the first game of the playoffs to get your feet wet. So, I mean, Aaron, you saw a little bit of this game. You watched this Packers offense. You've seen this Packers offense now. It just, when the lights are shining at their brightest right now, this Packers offense just doesn't seem to have the giddy up in the start of the game. In the start, right? They find it late, but it's almost too late. Then you're trying to play catch up. Then you're trying to play hurry up. Then you're not actually getting the full effect of what your offense actually could be, which is leading to a lot of these games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, definitely touching on the offensive point of view, I just thought early on, they just looked a little like overwhelmed. It looked like like you kind of said, the moment was too big. Like they couldn't slow things down as far as like a collective unit and like, just, okay, guys, we didn't get off to the start we wanted, but let's bounce back here. Like there was no like, okay, we're going to figure this out early. And that's when you get concerned because you're shipping your defense right back on the field. I mean, watching that, like to open up that the third quarter after the half, after basically the penalty to re-kick that field goal and then they, the Vikings do get it. Then that drive after half, that's like a backbreaker because I mean, I'm not saying you need a 3 and out, but I mean that ideally that's what you want. Like in a perfect world, if your team executes, boom, Minnesota has a 3 and out, you get the ball right back. You're down 13-3 at that point, and the game feels a lot different. The Vikings kind of go right down the field, and then they throw that bomb to Addison in the corner, and that's like, man, staring at 20-3 in that place is rocking. Like that place goes crazy. That's tough. It's just, eventually momentum is just like it mounts. It mounts. It's like a snowball going downhill. Eventually, it turns into a boulder. I mean, and then it's, okay, how are we going to find it offensively? I think no matter what, like when a team has a big lead like that, they're going to play less aggressive. I think the Vikings even at times didn't play less aggressively. Like they still, I mean, they try to bury that Packers O-line, who I thought had kind of a rough, not a terrible day, but not a great day, right? It was like they were trying to just figure it out there. So I mean, the slow starts will kill you. I mean, I guess especially, I mean, I've been kind of saying all year Sam Darnold would fall off a cliff. I mean, this game especially, he didn't, unfortunately, but it's Yeah, that Vikings team, when they play collectively like they did today, I mean, they're a damn good football team, which I mean, even the Eagle, like I don't know. That Vikings team's they're better. They're better than I want to give them credit for a lot of the time, but like today I'm like I'm not going to say the Packers didn't play, poorly for most, most of the game, but like I do kind of think, wow, like this Vikings team is when they're firing on all cylinders, it's like wow. Like it's hard to believe that Sam Darnold can do this, but he's been doing it all year now, and I can say that. But I mean, yeah, I think a couple of times this Packers defense comes up with a big stop in the first half. If Jordan Love and the boys can just get down the field and punch one in earlier, let's just say the end of the first quarter, just something to kind of make this game feel a little less like lopsided, I think you see a different game. And that whether that, we'll talk about, whether that's LaFleur not having the right game plans or like, in the moment, can he adjust in the moment? Like that type of thing is crucial, but that's where I think I'm not saying they don't have other deficiencies, sure, but that is the killer. Cause like, Minnesota is just rolling momentum. And it's like, okay, now we're just praying our defense can like not get obliterated. And after they get, tested, for 2 to 3 quarters there, it's like, it's a hard to ask because you keep putting them on the field too. Like it's such a collective, like and that's any football team, when things start to go bad offensively, you like, okay, now what? Like you kind of get in your own way at that point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it, like you said, I mean, this Vikings team's great. I mean, they put it all together. This is a darn good football team. They could go a long way. We try, like we always try to find a reason, right? Find a reason against them there. And after today, I would be honest with you, if that defense plays like they made the Packers offensive line, which we have given props to, we've said this is a great unit. They keep Jordan Love out of pressure a lot. He's got the ability to take his time, throw the football. They weren't able to do that today. And it was like that the first time they played the Vikings. They had a lot of pressure in there. Same with this one. Brian Flores is fantastic. He's fantastic calling a defense. So, I mean, that doesn't help. That doesn't help at all either. I mean, yeah, we talk about sacks in this game. The Packers, and that's where I want to look to, because Jordan Love was sacked 3 times in this one. Sam Darnold was sacked 1 time. 1 time. And we talked about it leading up into this game. We said the Packers have got to get pressure on Sam Darnold. They have to. They have to find a way to get pressure on Sam Darnold. And we talked about it. And you look at this game here. Where did Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark go? Right? Where did they go? Were they there? There was moments in that game where I was like, are they playing? Like, are they on the injury report this week? Like, I didn't see them on the injury report, but are they there? Like, where was Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary? I mean, they stunk. Yes, they made some plays. And yeah, I saw Rashawn Gary had 3 tackles. Great. He had 3 tackles on the entire game in the run game. Like, fantastic. Good work. Good work out of you. Where was your pressure on the quarterback? No pressure. You know what? Sam Darnold's fantastic. And I know we hate on him a lot. And I know we say if you moved him out of Minnesota, would it be the same and all that kind of stuff? I don't know, right? But in the system that he's in, he's a fantastic quarterback. And you know what happens when you give a fantastic quarterback a lot of time to throw the football, especially when he's got dynamite receivers like he does? Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Naylor showing up in a big way, Hockenson. When you have guys like that, I don't care who you have playing in the secondary, whether it's, Revis Island out there or anything, those receivers are going to come open at some point. And when they do come open, if your quarterback has 5 minutes to throw the football, he's going to deliver a strike. And that's what we saw. The throw to Josh Naylor, there was no pressure in his face. Yeah, Josh Naylor came wide open and, was blowing coverage by the Packers, but there was no pressure in his face. Look at all the throws that he made and tell me if there was pressure in his face on them. I'd be very surprised. I would be very surprised if I saw pressure in his face. I'm waiting for the PFF to come out in this one. I don't know. Aaron, can you find out there how many pressures they had in this game? How many pressures the Packers had? Because I would venture to guess very little to none in this game here. John is in the comments. I see you, John. Thanks for joining in tonight. I said Green Bay waited to do anything until that last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I mean, the offense took about an hour and a half to get ready to go. And once they were into the game, then it was like, oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can play now. We can ball out with you guys. But it's like, why did it take so long? And at times it honestly felt like the Vikings, it mattered to the Vikings. This game mattered to the Vikings. it didn't seem like it mattered to the Green Bay Packers. It didn't seem like it mattered when they came out in this one. And I hate that. I hate that. And that's where I was going to lead with this question, because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm seeing it all over social media. I'm seeing it all over the place. They're all saying, is Matt LaFleur the guy? Is he the guy? Right? And, you know, do you get better than Matt LaFleur? I don't know. Sometimes I like Matt LaFleur's play calling. Sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? Right? But are you going to get better than Matt LaFleur? Now, a lot of people are saying, you know, he isn't the guy because he can't win those big games, right? I think he's lost to Dan Campbell now 7 times, I believe. He hasn't beat Dan Campbell yet. He's terrible against Dan Campbell. And we're seeing him in big games now. He can't figure out how to win the big game, right? Play calling becomes a little suspect in those big games there. And the big one, he can't get the guys ready to go. He can't get them ready to go. And that's what we saw. Defensive line. Why is there no push, right? You know what? The guy that we gave so much prop to leading up into this game, Brenton Cox Jr. We said, this guy has been fantastic. He's getting more time. He's been nothing but great. He's not even in the stat sheet. He had 1 quarterback hit, and that's it in the entire game. He's last on the sheet here. I mean, just ridiculous. You got the did you find it out there on the
I could not. I really could not. I was trying really hard to. I could not find that. I mean, obviously I can see like tackles, everything like that. But I could not, unfortunately.
That's fine. We won't worry about it there.
Just kind of like real quick, just like I mean, you know, I breezed through the highlights a couple times on this game just to really get a good feel. I thought, like, from what I could tell, right, I thought the Packers got, like, it was almost like they pushed the Vikings line back into Darnold, but Darnold kind of just took a step back and, like, chucked it from there. Like, it wasn't like there were guys coming, like, free off the edge or anything like that. I thought, you know, between the tackles and stuff like that, like, you know, it's right there in the middle of the line, I thought the Packers actually got a good force, you know, on Darnold. Like, it's not like he had a completely clean pocket. It's just, it wasn't like he would have to, like, run out to his right or run out to his left. He kind of could, like, navigate throughout the pocket, which he's gotten, like, I almost hate to say it because it's not like I hate the guy. It's just like I can't believe
he doesn't like Sam Darnold.
I'm not a Darnold guy. You know what I mean? But it's like the way he can kind of, like, I don't know how to explain. Maybe it's like a Drew Brees type of thing. Like when you watch Drew Brees in the pocket, he would just kind of like go left, go right. Like he felt his way through the pocket. I thought that's like while I'm watching this, you know, watching this back again here, it's like I thought the Packers actually, like, they got it's pressure. It's just not like pressure to the point where he's disrupted. You know what I mean? Like it's pressure where he has to think and like be on the fly. Like, boom, okay, who am I going to? Because like if I sit here another 2 seconds, I'm gonna get annihilated. But it wasn't like, oh my God, deer in headlights pressure where it's like, you know, I have to get this thing out this second or I'm screwed. Like, I don't know how to explain it. There's like different, you know, levels to the pressure of what, you know, if you watch like the Giants back in the day with like Strahan and, you know, Justin Tuck, stuff like that, like those guys would literally rip the O-line apart. Like you weren't seeing that. You were just seeing, okay, hey, if I'm Sam Darnold, I got to get this thing out fast. But it's a lot easier when you have all those guys too, like you mentioned. I mean, and then, you know, for guys that don't usually show up in a game like this to show up like Naylor today, it's like, okay, now it gets to be like, okay, how are we going to stop this? If we can't get pressure, like we mentioned how many times, you know, how many weeks, if a defense, I don't care if it's the Packers, the 85 Bears, right? If you can't get pressure, it's like it makes things a lot harder. And then he got comfortable and he has all these playmates. Like that's the thing. That's where Darnold like is extremely blessed. I'm not trying to take it away from him, but he's throwing to like, you know, elite. Like it's just guys are at the top of the game everywhere. And then, you know, you have a solid running back in Aaron Jones. Like it's just, they were kind of just, they were up against it today. And I feel like this offense can come, you know, they can, you know, match them. It's just in the big games, they haven't. So it's hard to say, like, to your point, can they do it consistently? They haven't proven this year that they can. That's the only thing I would say to that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. We're going to get more into that when we come back from the ad break here. We did have one over on TikTok. We are on TikTok live now. Wendy with the blue eyes. Nice to see you there, Wendy. She says She lives on the Wisconsin-Minnesota border there, and she's never going to hear the end of this one. I am sorry, Wendy. That must be the worst place to live, too, because you got to listen to the Vikings fans over there tell you all about it now for the next year, right? They don't have to win the Super Bowl. They just have to beat the Packers twice. And then they're going to tell you all about it for the rest of the time. So I'm sorry for that one there. But we're going to be back. We're at the 30-minute mark here, so we're going to be back. Got to take our ad break here. Come back. We're going to talk a little bit more Packers here because there is a lot to dive into with this Packers-Vikings matchup there. So we'll be back on the other side of the commercial.
This show is brought to you by these fantastic sponsors. Pittsville Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in to see the awesome crew at Pittsville Farm and Home Center in Pittsville. Next, we have Sport and Spine Clinic of Greenwood. Have you been injured recently, whether it was at work, shoveling snow, or mowing the lawn? Stop in and see Chad at Sport and Spine Clinic in Greenwood. He will get you right, get you back to work, back to shoveling snow, back to mowing the lawn, doing whatever you were doing, feeling better than ever. And then we have Game Day Supply in Onalaska. Do you have a sports club or team? Are you looking for some sweet custom uniforms or apparel? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply in Onalaska to help your team get the sweetest gear.
Great stuff there. And that's where you buy these custom shirts to support us here on the show. The Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Swag. We got shirts. We got sweatshirts. We got it all. Check them out there at Game Day Supply. Just search Wisco Sports on the Go. You'll find us there. You can find all of our stuff. Support us here on the show. I mean, it's all quality stuff, too. I've got a couple sweatshirts, couple shirts, everything like that. It's great stuff. Got this windbreaker, too. So, I mean, all kinds of fantastic there. So, Aaron, I want to keep with that Matt LaFleur thing because we mentioned it there for a minute. You know, Matt LaFleur, and we answered it a little bit, but it just seems to me like at times the Packers don't come ready to play, right? And that's something that we always give props to Dan Campbell about, is that it doesn't matter who's on his defense, right? I mean, look at that defense. Look how many guys are out injured right now for the Lions. And every single one of them guys, whether it's the Joe Schmo that they just found on the street corner there on the way into the stadium, or it's the guy that they found in the airport on the way over to Philly, or whoever it is, right? He gets them ready to rock and roll. And when I watch this Packers team, and we're talking about the consistency, the playing a complete game, right? We've mentioned it before, and I know a lot of people hate to talk about it because they're like, oh, well, they won this game, right? Yeah, winning's cool. Like, it's cool to win. It's cool to win some games here and there, but it's also cool to win and play a complete game and look dominant throughout that game, right? The Saints game, I thought they played a good game against the Saints. Don't get me wrong. They played a great game against the Saints. The Cardinals game, that was a complete game. Seattle, they floored them, but I wouldn't say that was a complete game. I mean, Seattle, there was moments in there where I was still a little sketched out. Even with the lead, I was nervous. I mean, you look at the 49ers game, I wouldn't say they played they played good, but I don't think they played great. I mean, we're looking at these games, we're like, yeah, I mean, they've beat some teams. They beat some playoff teams. Seattle could be a playoff team, right? And they beat the Cardinals, who technically were in the playoff conversation, but I don't believe they are anymore. But they beat the Cardinals at the time, who were playing well. And, you know, they're Jekyll and Hyde. They can get the job done. But you look at the rest of this. Okay, they've proven that they can beat the Texans, who are in the playoff picture in the AFC. They proved that they can beat the Rams without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. But outside of that, it's the proof in the pudding for me, right? And it's the who have you lost to? And you look at the combined scores of those games, and you look at the margins that they lost by. It looks good. I mean, it looks good when you think about it that way. They lost to the Eagles by 5. Lost to the Eagles by 5. Lost to the Vikings by 2. Lost to the Lions by 10. And then you lose to the Lions again by 3, and you lose to the Vikings by 2 again. Oh, okay. That looks good. That looks good in hindsight, right? But at the end of the day, a loss is a loss. And it's what you can do in those games. What can you do in those games to get over that hump, right? Both of these last 2 games that they've lost, the Lions and the Vikings, it came down to the point of, could the defense get that key stop, right? The Lions game was 4th down. They had a 4th down shot that if they could get that stop, they could get off the field, get the offense the ball back. Against the Vikings, same thing. They made the comeback. Now we can blame it on the Vikings took their foot off the pedal and everything like that. Sure, we can blame it on that, right? But they had the shot and they couldn't get the stop. So you look at 2 games now, multiple games now, where they needed a key stop and they couldn't find that key stop. And I think that's the thing that makes me the most nervous with the defense, is that when the moment is there, there's a moment, right? You have that moment in a game where you're like, this was the deciding factor, right? This is what changed the momentum. It changed that game. It's a defense. It always seems to be that defensive stop, right? When I think of momentum changers or key moments in a game, right? Everybody thinks back to the 2015 Wisconsin Badgers in the Final Four. And everybody thinks of the Sam Decker step back three, right? Everybody thinks of that moment. And they're like, yeah, Sam hit that big step back three. And it was huge. It was a huge moment. But everybody fails to remember the charge he took on the other end of the floor then that got the ball back for the Badgers. That took all the momentum away from Kentucky. That took all that momentum. And I know I'm talking basketball now to football, and I know I'm flipping around there, but it's that defensive stop, right? That key stop in a game that changed that momentum. You mentioned it. You mentioned it coming into that third quarter, right? Coming out of half, we knew the Vikings were going to have the football, and we knew, yeah, if they put it in the end zone, it's 20-3 at that time.
23,
it's 20-3. It's now. I mean, you're playing from way behind. If you can hold them to a field goal, not so bad, right? Not so bad. If you can hold them, right? But the Vikings, they take that second half kickoff and they walk down the field and they put it in the end zone. And now you're in a hole. And now you have to try to dig yourself out of that hole. The hole that the offense puts you in. Don't get me wrong. The offense puts you in that hole. I'm not gonna just say this is all on the defense, right? I'm not gonna blame it on the defense. But if I look at the whole picture, the defense has not been able to get that key stop. They haven't. Game in and game out. They haven't been. Yeah, maybe they got a key stop against, the Rams, when they won 24-19, and they got that key stop against Matthew Stafford and his second string guys. I mean, I think Atwell was the number one receiver there. I don't even know who Atwell is, but I think he was the number one receiver there for the Rams that day. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp. You had to rely on your defense to get that stop. I mean, Texans, you barely won that one. You wanted, I believe wasn't that the walk-off field goal by Braden Darvison?
Yeah.
That was the walk-off field goal. That was a walk-off field goal. But you won that game. I mean, that was a good win. Don't get me wrong. Good win. The Bears blocked field goal to win that game. Otherwise, your offense was suspect in that whole ball game. I mean, we look at I always say the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is in the pudding that this team, I'm going to say that they are a good team. They're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think that they can. I think that they're a good playoff team, right? And I think they can win a game in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. But after watching today, if this is the consistency and the continued things that we're going to see in big games, what tells you that they can go on the road 3 times in the playoffs and rattle off wins? If this is the consistent play that we get. Because if you go into Philly and you start in a hole, guess what? They don't have Aaron Jones. They have a guy by the name of Saquon Barkley, and they'll milk the crap out of that clock. They will milk the ever-living crap out of that clock. And they have playmakers, too. Guess what? They have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So they can throw the ball around, too, just like the Vikings can. And they have a pretty good quarterback who is mobile in Jalen Hurts, and a pretty good defense to back that up, too. So what tells you you can start like this on the road in Philly or on the road in Ford Field or going back to Minnesota again? You can't survive playing this. I mean, look at the Vikings, and I mean, I was impressed how many games they win playing in close games. They find ways, right? They find ways. And some teams are good enough to find ways to win those close games, but the difference is their defense finds ways to get stops. They found ways to get stops. Now, that was the Packers playing into their hand a little bit, but at the same time, it was also execution. It was also the want, right? And that's where I'm getting back to here at the Matt LaFleur thing. It's the coming into these games energized and ready to rock, ready to rip somebody's head off. I mean, that's where I love Dan Campbell. I love him. Yes, his players sometimes, you look at Brian Branch. He likes to, is he the guy who loves to aim for the shins? He loves to take out the kneecaps. Is it Branch or is it Joseph? Is it Kirby Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph. Yeah,
it's Kirby Joseph, and he loves to do that. But those guys take on that attitude of Dan Campbell. You watch Jared Goff play, you watch any of those backs play, they take on that attitude. I don't know what Matt LaFleur brings me sometimes. I don't think he brings me that kind of attitude. I really don't. And I think sometimes that rubs off on the players. I really do. I don't think they have that. They have a killer instinct, I think, at times, right? I think Jordan Love has a killer instinct at times, but they don't come into that. The defense, The defense looks like, I don't know. Today it looked like it was, I mean, it looked kind of like high school football. It looked like high school football taking on college football. Like this was like if, they always used to say if Alabama went and played the 0-16 Browns, what would happen, right? This is what we saw. It was like we were watching a high school football team walk in and play Alabama and try to win that game. And it was just a rout. It was just domination. That's what we saw here for multiple quarters in a row, was just domination. And I hate it. I really do. I really do. It's, I circled back to this because I mentioned this on Friday in our preview show. I talked about it. I said, what's going to hurt the offense a lot? I said, is Christian Watson isn't out there. Because Christian Watson has that ability to spread the field. He has the ability to blow the top off of defense and make you respect him a little bit more. And not having him out there, I thought that showed. I thought that showed in this one. The drops definitely showed again. And we talked about it, rearing the ugly head of those little things there. And the pre-snap penalties, the drops, those little things that you can't have happen to win a football game. The opening drive, the fumble. I know it's the opening drive, and I don't want to blame Josh Jacobs for nothing there, but a fumble on the opening drive, right? When you win the coin toss and you take the ball first and you fumble the ball on that opening drive, that is wind out of the sails like that. Because when you take the ball first, willingly take the ball first, your objective, the only objective that you can have is to walk down that field and punch that baby in the end zone. Because you are risking not getting the ball coming out of that second half. And that's what they did in this one. That is exactly what they did. John's over in the comment section. He says, only problem I have with the Vikings is they play down to their competition. Look at the Lions. They don't take the foot off the gas pedal. Rams play down to everyone. They also all wins by one possession. Yeah, I mean, I'm not – guess what? At some point, though, you got to tip your hat, and I'm tipping my hat. They find ways. They find ways to win. Maybe it's that they play down to competition. Maybe it's that they get big leads and they let teams back into it, whatever we want to call it. They find ways to win them. I mean, they find ways to win those games. You look at, and we talked about some of the problems in that first half there. Josh Jacobs fumble, the Jaden Reed drop on the fourth down, the Wicks penalty on third down there. I mean, you can't beat good teams playing like that. You can't beat good teams playing like that. And then, I mean, yeah, John's going to preach into the choir here. Love had less than 64 yards, less than 5 minutes. Green Bay should have won this game. I mean, I put some of the, okay, so this is where you got to distribute blame, right? You can't just blame one guy. You got to blame a whole, right? I blame Matt LaFleur's play calling a little bit in this one. I also blame the execution of the players because I thought there was moments in this game where either Love made a bad throw or it was a catchable pass and the Packer, or whoever it was, Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks, they dropped the ball. There was moments, there was opportunities, and the Packers just didn't execute. And that's what I'm talking about, coming prepared, coming ready to rock and roll, ready to punch a team in the mouth, right? On the road, in a big game like this, you have to come ready to punch a team in the mouth. And I don't believe the Packers came ready to punch a team in the mouth in this one. But I heard the dumbest thing ever. The dumbest thing ever the other day, Aaron. I heard the dumbest argument. It was on a Vikings show. And someone, a Packer fan out there, brought up, it was a stat about the Packers that they've been so good at this since week 9. And the person said, the host of the show or whatever, said, well, that's a Packer fan thing to do, bring up stats since week 9. Like, that's just, you can't just do that. Like, it matters as a whole. And I'm like, well, hold on. First off, you're an idiot. Okay. I understand that as a whole, you want to look good all season long, right? Sam Darnold, you want him to look good all season long, everything like that. But if you can't bring up stats since a certain week, then how do you know how well your team has progressed, right? Defensively, how well do you know how much the defensive front has progressed if you don't look and say, oh, they struggled to start the year, but since week 7, they now have a total of this many pressures and a total of this many sacks. Like, I want to know that stat. I want to know how better they are from, week 1 to 5 to week 5 to 10. I want to know that stat. That's a great stat because now I know how much they've progressed. Because if you think, and seriously, if you think that a whole team comes into a season and they're just flying freaking high the whole time, you're nuts. I don't know what you guys are smoking over there in Minnesota, but you should roll it and throw it over here because we need a little bit of that. You guys are wild. You guys are wilding over there. Just settle down over there. Like, I thought that was just the dumbest argument. I really did. I thought it was the dumbest thing I've heard because how do you show us? Your team doesn't, all 53 guys don't come into a season and they're just freaking cooking, man. Like everything is just oiled up and ready to go. The engine's just churning from week 1 until week freaking 30. Well, whatever it is when the Super Bowl happens, it'd be what? Week 19, 20, 21, 22, probably 22 weeks, 22, 23 weeks to get to the Super Bowl there. Like, you're telling me your team is just churning for 23 weeks and we can't look at stats at week 16 and tell you how good shut up. Just shut up. I mean, Aaron, is that not the stupidest thing you've heard? Like, that was the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
So they're basically saying, like, within a certain stretch of their season or like that, they want to make an argument like,
you can't use that stat. Like, that's a dumb stat to use. It's such a Packer fan thing to say, is that since like week 9, the stat he brought up was from week 9 until today, which would be week 16, 17 now. It'd be until week 16. They've been this much better at this. And the guy said, well, you can't bring up stats. This is a Packer thing to do. Bring up stats like that. And I'm like, or you're just bringing up stats to show the improvement of a certain area of this team. Like, yeah, that's a pretty common thing.
Right. Like, if they said, like, between weeks 11 and 13, the Packers were this much, but like, I'd be like, okay, but what does that matter? Right. But when it's like a stretch from like more than a couple, like, I hate when people say, oh, you know, they've like this, like, that's what bothered me about the Saints to start the year. But, oh my God, look at the 2-0 Saints. I'm like, dude, it's 2 weeks, first of all. Like, who knows what they're going to be? I you know, whatever. But when you have a good sample size, what you do, and then, you know, it's through current time too. It's through, you know, you're saying week 9 till week 17. Like, that's completely relevant. Like, why? I don't know. People if you get butthurt about that, it's like, well, you know, have your team play better. Like, obviously today they'll use that, right? But it's, yeah, I mean, if it's something you're better at another team at, and there's like a sample size that's worth anything, which obviously there is, like, yeah, I don't understand how you can fight against that. Like, if the Commanders are better than the Eagles for the last 4 weeks, you know, they're putting up 10 points more a game. I got to look at my offense and be like, okay, why are we not putting up, you know, 10 points more a game or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, why can't fans like look at their own team and be like, we have a problem, like something needs to be better here, or this is a weakness, or, you know, you can circle this as a current problem. Like, I don't understand why if you're a fan of a team that the stats don't go in their favor, you can't just be like, oh, that might not be good. You're like,
yep. No, I agree. That's why I just thought it was the dumbest thing. I thought it was the dumbest thing. I was like, why can't you bring up that stat? I want to see the improvement of a team. You know, I don't expect my rookies to come out week 1 and be lighting the world on fire. But if you show me a stat since week 9 that, you know, so-and-so has had this many pressures since week 9 until week 16, that's awesome. Like, that's cool. I love that stat. I love to see those stats, to see the improvement of a guy. Hate the rest of that. So we did have one over on TikTok there from Brady Rockovic. Nice to see you in the comments tonight here. He said, for the Vikings, I don't know if you talked about this, but what is your opinion on the 25-26 season on who is the starting quarterback? So who's going to be starting quarterback for the Vikings? I'll be honest with you. After watching this, I'm bringing Sam Darnold back. I don't know why you wouldn't, right? You have all these guys, Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson. You have this great defense. You have a great head coach. You have a great defensive coordinator. You have great all the way around, right? Why would you risk, okay, we let Darnold walk. We don't have anybody to back up JJ. We're just hoping he's going to be good enough. He goes through a little rookie slump. You bring the whole team down with him now, instead of letting Sam Darnold just take the chains for another year, see what he can do, and then you bring JJ behind that. That's what I'm doing. I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't let JJ develop.
I mean, exactly. I mean, does anybody? I mean, we've seen crazier things like Stroud come out rookie season, go, you know, balls to the wall. But like, does anybody expect JJ? I mean, what, 2 knee surgeries already? Like, and hasn't played a snap in the NFL.
22, 23.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think he's like maybe he's 21 now, be 22 for the next season. I can't remember what was it, Dustin, that we had on Friday there.
Yeah.
I think he said he's like 21 or something. He's 22 or yeah, but I there's no way he outperformed.
21.
Yeah. There's just no way he plays as good as, and it's like I'm still like almost catching myself saying this, but there's no way he plays as good as Sam Darnold does. Like year one off 2 knee surgeries, like, and why not let him develop when you're having success too? Like, I mean, there's a chance they win the 1 seed, which is like no. I mean, how many people had that on their bingo card? So I think, yeah, there's no way you move off Sam Darnold, especially like after the year that he's having. Even if they were 500, it would be something to consider because it's a veteran guy. He's been around the block. McCarthy coming off those 2, just brutal surgeries already, and he's gonna have to develop. Like he's gonna hit bumps and bruises, like no pun intended, but he's gonna, like, it's just no way he picks it up. Dave, I know he has weapons. Like this is a great situation to be in coming into it, but yeah, I mean, why not just? I'm not saying maybe the Packer approach like 3-4 years, but next year. I mean, let's say they lose in the divisional round this year, the Vikings do, and then next year they're a wild card team. Okay, after next year, like because you see maybe a little regression, like why not? And I'd even like maybe bring him in games that if you have a big lead, bring him in. Like just get him some snaps next year. But I mean, if they were to go off Darnold, I'd be shocked. Like that would be almost idiotic at this point.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, and like I've never wanted to admit it either, but you take away Josh Allen, take away Lamar Jackson's here. Sam Darnold could be a name in there. Like, to be honest with you, for an MVP conversation, he could be right there. I mean, he's got over 30 touchdowns on the year. With today's totals, he's up to 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, over 4,000 yards passing. I mean, yes, he's got a lot of weapons. Yes. And that's the day old thing, but that's good numbers. That is downright fantastic numbers. And that's a big reason for the Vikings' success. Like we always said, like we were talking about this early on in the season. We said if the Vikings are going to succeed, it's going to be on the back of the defense. It's going to be on the back of a lot of these playmakers doing things. I did not have on my bingo card Sam Darnold being one of those playmakers. I did. And he's developing into one of those. And he's playing the best football that he has played in his career. And I'm honestly hats off to the guy. You go, man. Like I've never rooted for him to suck. I've never rooted for the guy to suck. He doesn't seem like a terrible dude. I haven't rooted for him to suck. But I mean, nothing but fantastic this year for the Vikings. And it's showing. And this Vikings team, that was a good team. And what we saw was the Packers are a good team, maybe a little bit better than good. They can beat one of these teams. I still think they could, but they're not a great team. These are what we're seeing now. The Vikings, the Lions, the Eagles, those are, if they're not great teams, they're like whatever you could say is right below a great team before a good team. They're in between there if they're not to a great team yet. That's what I'm seeing when I watch these teams because they are well put together, complementary football, consistent. We can throw it all out there. We can figure out how to get stops for you on the defensive side. We can do the little things right in the game and we can win those games. The Packers find a way to shoot themselves in the foot every single big game. And that's the difference between a good team and a bad team, right? Or not a good team and a bad team, a good team and a great team. That's your difference. That is your biggest difference there is which team can make the big plays, right? I mentioned those drops the Packers had. Jaden Reed had one on a 4th down, and then Dontavian Wicks had one that would have got the 1st down. Those little things, those big plays, right? Those are big moments. And I know it's a dive and catch. I get that. But if you want to play winning football, you have to make those plays. You have to be able to catch those balls. You got to be able to, make the right play, make the right read, whatever it is. You got to be able to do those little things and get those key stops. And that's something that the Packers are missing. That's the biggest missing piece right now with the Green Bay Packers. And how they fix that, you're not fixing it right now. I thought they had fixed it, to be honest with you. I thought they had fixed it. And then I watched today, and it all came back to the front. And it was like, okay, so now we know. If they play the Saints, if they play some of these lesser teams, looks good. It all looks good, right? Seattle, they can beat Seattle. Okay, yeah, Seattle's a playoff team. They're a good team. but they're not great, right? They're not the Lions. They're not the Vikings. They're not the Eagles, right? They're not that. So what tells you that they could beat those teams? Nothing so far. Nothing. And I know the Packers are banged up. Quay Walker's out. Jair, who the heck even knows, right? If we go on the road for the playoffs, I'd leave him wherever we go. I would just leave him there. If he gets hurt in the playoff game, I'd just leave him there. But at this point, I'm just done with that whole situation. This is just nuts. This is just ridiculous. But, I mean, yeah, you were banged up. You had some injury. We talked about Evan Williams being out, and Anderson got hurt early in this one, and you lost Devontae Wyatt. Yeah, you had some injuries. So did the Lions. The Lions have a boatload of injuries. They find ways, right? They find ways to win football games yet. And it relies a lot on the offense with their playmakers taking care of business. And the defense just holds. They hold how they can. They have weaknesses. Look at the Vikings. They have a weakness. That we talked about their slot coverage. Their slot coverage is terrible. But in this game here, we talked about it. We're like, yeah, we said it. We're like, how do you beat them? Target the slot, right? Target Jaden Reed. He had one catch. One catch in this game. How well did you target the slot? That was supposed to be the weak point. You didn't go after the weak point in this one, which makes you question then. It makes you like, well, why did Jaden Reed only get one target? And usually I wouldn't be so upset because you have a lot of playmakers, right? You have a lot of playmakers. But we talked about, where's the one hole? There's every defense has got that one hole. Exploit, Gilmore's age. He's a little bit older. Exploit him. Take care of that. And we saw it a couple times with Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. Exploit that slot with Metillus or whatever the heck his name is there in that slot. Didn't exploit it. Didn't do nothing. I know, like I said, Christian Watson being out, that hurts, right? Because that's your blown over top guy. And he can stretch a defense. But if Watson's not there, you got to find ways, right? It can't be that silver lining that if one guy's missing, the whole train just stops. You got to be able to fix the engine and make it still rumble. This game here, you came out flat once again, and that's what led to this one. John did say, before we get to a little bit of an ad break here and then move on from the Packers here, John did say I would bring back Darnold, or do the Titans want a veteran and give up a pick for him? That'd be interesting too. Do you sign Darnold up and then try to trade him away and get some draft capital? I mean, that's definitely an option. I don't know if that's the way that they would swing it. I don't know if that would help the Vikings here. The thing with it is, I think the Vikings have opened up a window of playoff, opportunity, right? That's where they're at right now, is that playoff opportunity. They got Jefferson for a while now. They got Addison signed up. They got Hawk. They have Aaron Jones now. They have weapons. And these guys are, they're all going to get to that point in their contract where they're going to get that next one. And that next one's going to cost them a little bit more. So it's the question of, your window's open now. Do you trust J.J. McCarthy in that window? Do you want to waste a year? I guess is my big thing. Because I'm not saying you're wasting it because I don't know about J.J. McCarthy, right? I've never hated that guy. He went to Michigan. I don't like Michigan, but I've never hated J.J. McCarthy. I think he's a gamer, right? But sometimes a gamer ain't going to win you games, right? He ain't going to be that over-the-top guy. Bo Nix is a gamer, but Joe Burrow is a gamer. And who would I take in that contest? Joe Burrow, right? I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is one of those kind of guys or if he's a Bo Nix guy who's going to be, he get you wins, but I haven't seen Bo Nix deliver. I haven't seen him deliver that one yet. And I don't know if J.J. McCarthy can be that guy. Right now, I know Sam Darnold can win me football games. And we're going to see it against the Lions next week because that's for the 1 seed. I am really interested to see Sam Darnold with a 1 seed on the line because that's in the back of their heads. That 1 seed's on the line. I am interested to see how Sam Darnold plays in that game. He knew it was in this game too. Don't get me wrong. He knew it was, a lot was riding on this game for him. But that next game, that is for all the marbles, the 1 seed, the division, everything in between. Like, that's where you get to see how low do those cojones hang on Sam Darnold. We're going to find out in that one. Like, that is going to be interesting.
Well, and yeah, to touch on that there real quick, Trajan, I mean, it's like this whole argument of like, okay, well, I hate to like push it back to the, like, I don't want to make it Eagle centric, but like every time I hear this, like, there'll be a team rolling and they're looking at, okay, but who's behind him? Like, what's the potential of the guy behind him? Like I'm not going to say it would have been the right move, but I had a lot of conversations with Eagles fans when Foles went on to win the Super Bowl. Everybody's like, okay, well, Wentz is the guy because he got you there. But we'll never know if Wentz would have went through that playoff stretch and won the Super Bowl. Like that and evidence-based, after that, like he didn't come close. So I hate when people are like, don't get me wrong, I am a grass is sometimes greener type of guy. Like I hate when I've like Penn State, right? I've said that like the Steelers. I always say the Steelers. Why don't they? Tomlin gets you there for nothing. What's he really get done? But like in a situation like this, man, it's like you play the Packers today, huge game. Sam Darnold showed up. Like he showed up for 4 quarters too. It's not like he showed up for a half or and then he imploded. Like I just hate this whole notion of like, okay, but we have JJ McCarthy. Like JJ McCarthy could be the biggest bust we've ever seen. Like we don't know. I'm not saying he's going to be, but like you're gonna. How are you going to say he's going to come out and play as good as Sam Darnold is right now? I'm not talking Sam Darnold in 5 years. Maybe Sam Darnold has a flash in the pan for 2 or 3 years in Minnesota and then goes somewhere and becomes irrelevant again. But, I mean, right now, how are you going to move off a guy that's getting you – I mean, he could win – they could be the number 1 seed in the NFC. They beat, a great Packers team today. They're right there with Detroit for the best team in the NFC. They could finish higher than the 2 seed Eagles. Like, it's like kind of be grateful a little bit. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to stay on Sam Darnold forever, but if they were to like trade him after this year, I hope they employ, like, I would root so hard against them just because it's like, that's how you're going to treat, a guy that gets you to like, that's like all these Eagles fans were telling, oh, well, you got to go back to Wentz. I'm like, dude, Nick Foles won you the first Super Bowl we ever had. Like, how are you going to be ungrateful about that? Like, that mindset to me is like, it's crazy. There's been other examples of that too. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but like it's, this notion of like, okay, we can find the next guy. He'll be right behind him. Like the guy behind him is going to be just as good or better. That's not always the case, and that's a big risk to take when you're staring at the number 1 seed in the last week of the season. Like we'll see in the playoffs. I still don't 100%, but today I'm like, wow, this guy. I mean, like pressure, no pressure. Like the guy showed up, and like I at least have to say that he did what he had to do.
For me, next week is my test. Next week.
Yeah.
If he passes the eye test next week, if he beats the Lions, if he goes to Detroit and beats the Lions, here's my money. Here's my money. Take my money.
I'll even say this, Trajan, like if they lose 35-42 type game, right? And Darnold plays out, like he doesn't throw a pick to cost them the game. Like if he's got you in the game in the 4th quarter, like as much as I'm always like win or else, like I hate this in between, but I mean at that point it's like he
just took my money. Like
if the defense gives you up 42 points, I crap all over the defense for a week if I'm a Vikings fan. Like if he comes out and puts up 17 points and throws 2 to 3 picks, fumbles the ball, something like that, 2 to 3 turnovers total, and he just looks like horrible, then yeah, you have a case. But like if it's a competitive game with Detroit, who's going to come out like guns a-blazing, like fully loaded, I mean, how much more can the guy, at least this season, I'm not saying his career, I mean, he's bounced around, but right now, right here, right now, I'm not giving him an 8-year deal either. I'm not doing that. But, I mean, right here, right now, it's like, dude.
100%. I 100% agree. I mean, he's 27 years old. It's not like he's old. He's 27. Like, he's got a lot of time left, too. Dustin, nice to see you tonight, Dustin. It was a good game by the Vikings there. He said, great effort tonight. They're going to take that 1 seed, he's telling me. He wants to extend Darnold. Said, report came out today that Minnesota is going to do whatever they can to give Darnold a multi-year extension. They want him back. I agree. Give him back there. John does say Darnold is going to go for less than 220, Goff for 377, Lions 35-30. I see, that's right where Aaron's talking. I mean, it's going to be a good, high-scoring, competitive game there. But Aaron, we're late for a break. We got to get to our last sponsor break there. We're going to come back. We want to dive into a little bit of how the Brewers fleeced the Orioles. We're going to get to that when we come back here. So we'll see you on the other side of this ad.
This show is brought to you by these fantastic sponsors. Marshfield Motor Speedway, located 3 miles outside of Marshfield on County Road H. Tons of family fun for all ages. Great food, great drinks, great racing. I cannot think of a better way to spend a summer day or night than down at the track. Next is Sports Scene in Marshfield, Wisconsin, located at the Marshfield Mall. Get down there and see Al. He has everything you need, from sports cards, memorabilia, jerseys, model stock cars. He's got it all. Sports Scene in Marshfield. And then we have Peggy Sue Beslick, Century 21. Do you want to find your dream home or maybe looking to sell your current property? Let Peggy Sue Beslick at Century 21 help you with all of your housing or property needs.
Buy a house. That's what we're telling you right now. Call Peggy Sue and she'll get you set up with that house. Or look to sell, right? Start in the new year. You don't want to pay taxes on that old clutter you got. Move on, right? Sell that baby off. Move on to a new establishment there. That's what you got to do. Call Peggy Sue. So let's get into this. The Brewers, I believe, just fleeced the Orioles. So Corbin Burnes, he was in the news over the weekend. We were talking about that a little bit. It broke. Was it Friday? Right after we were done a little bit? It was Friday or Saturday.
I think
it might have
broken Saturday, but tomato there.
It was one of those. It was one of those two. Either way, it broke relatively close to when we were done talking there. And we had mentioned, so the Brewers trade. So I want to get back. We're going to go way back, right? We're going back to the February 2nd of 2024. The Brewers flipped on Corbin Burnes and they said, hey, buddy, we're done with you. All right. We're done with you. We're going to send you off to the Orioles, a rental almost, and we're going to trade for Joey Ortiz, left-hander DL Hall, and then they got a competitive balance round A draft pick, which they did use. So, okay, there's our deal, right? Corbin Burnes goes to the Orioles. Aaron, you're an Orioles fan. You loved it, right? You got Corbin Burnes. They went out. They got you a guy. Problem was, you didn't win a playoff game with that guy. And problem was the Brewers, well, they didn't win a playoff game anyways, but it wasn't because of Corbin Burnes, right? It was because, Devin Williams blew apart in the back end of the bullpen. But either way, now comes out the report. Corbin Burnes is going to the Diamondbacks on a $210 million contract. It was on Friday because we were still talking when they flipped it there. We were just getting off the air when they flipped it. That's what it was, because we were talking about the deal. That's what you were trying to figure out. Was it the biggest deal for a pitcher, or was it a right-handed pitcher? We were trying to figure out what Garrett Cole's contract was.
Well, what I mentioned, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just remember it came out because I'm glad you brought up the 210 because it came out that that Burnes wanted 265. That was the whole thing. And then it was who's in play? Are the Orioles in play? Are the Yankees in play? Or I didn't even hear that the Diamondbacks were in play though. I heard the Red Sox. I heard the AL East teams basically were in play for him. It was Blue Jays, Red Sox. The Orioles had talks with. I don't know how serious they were, but there was, and the Dodgers. The Dodgers were mentioned, but and Yankees. So pretty much everybody in the AL East without exception of Tampa Bay there. And then, but the Diamondbacks weren't even, and I hate myself for having that kind of two team. I am a Phillies guy, but I root for the Orioles too. I hate it, but it's I root for that team, that franchise. But it was one of those deals where I was like, wow, all these guys are going to go get their money. He's not going to come back to the Orioles for 180. Let's say the Orioles offered him one. He's going to be like, that's funny. But it was one of those opportunities where I thought the Orioles were going to be like, you know what? We're going to set new ownership. We're going to be like, we're keeping this guy. And no, to say they fleeced them, I certainly do agree to a certain. I'm not a DL Hall guy at all. I don't want him on my team just because he steps out of the house and he trips down the steps and breaks his ankle. Guy is just fragile. It's unfortunate. If he can ever stay healthy, he has great stuff. It's just but Ortiz is a nice player, and the Brewers did what the Angels failed to do. I know it's a whole different situation, but Ohtani, right? You let Ohtani imagine what you would have got back in a trade package for Ohtani. That will be forever a black cloud on that franchise to me, because you weren't bringing him back. Maybe they thought they had a chance, but I still think you got to go with your gut there and just trade him at that. You know what I mean? Trade him, even if it was last minute, trade him. The Brewers did it. So, hats off to them. They at least got something for Burnes. Maybe it's not that, I remember us talking, it wasn't the package like everybody thought he'd bring back, but they got something, and they got two guys that can be productive at the major league level. And now look, the Orioles got him for a rental. They didn't get anything back for him. So he walks out the door there. The Diamondbacks, but did you see how he does have that opt-out after 2 years? After 2 years, he'll probably leave the Diamondbacks. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever. I really wouldn't.
265 would have been nuts for a pitcher.
Yeah.
That would have been nuts. I don't know who the heck would have made that. Yankees would have made that deal. Dodgers, Mets. I was surprised the Mets. When I heard the Diamondbacks too, I was surprised. I was like, how did the Mets not get Corbin Burns? Like, honestly. Like, I know they just spent money on Juan Soto. They're probably out of money. Like, we thought Steve Cohen had a deep pocket, and then he just spent all this money on Juan Soto, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait. There ain't nothing left, boys. This is it. Like, we can't even afford to put vendors up in the stadium this year. Like, we're just going to hope they show up with coolers. That's what we're going to hope. Like, hey, I know we usually tell you guys to keep your beer and your food in the parking lot. You can bring it in now. You can just sit down with it. Just come on in. Let's sit down there. But, I mean, yeah, the Diamondbacks, they made that deal for Jordan Montgomery last season. And that was that late in the year. Like, it was he's a Scott Barros. Is that his name?
Boris.
Scott Boris. That's what it is. Barros, Boris. All the same thing, right?
Yes.
Same difference there. But Jordan Montgomery was kind of a shell of himself for him last year. He had, what do you have, a 6 ERA for him last season in 117 innings? Like, that's your number one guy. That was supposed to be your number one guy. Now you still have Zach Gallen there, so he's still cool, right? But outside of that, you didn't really have anything cooking. So now getting Corbin Burns in there, you have to. The Dodgers have all the offense. You got to load up the pitching staff, because if you're going to somehow compete in that division, you have to be able to mow them down. And now you bring in Corbin Burns. Little do they know, suck on this, he sucks against the Dodgers. So suck on that. We got him now, right? I'm just kidding. He did get torched for the Brewers against the Dodgers, though. So, I mean, they had to. If you're the Diamondbacks, I think this is a great move, honestly. Like, honestly, it's a great move, because you're not going to be able to get the bats to compete with the Dodgers. But if you got a good enough arm, if you got a good enough starting rotation, bullpen, you might be able to win a 2-0 like barn burner game against them. Like, that's kind of what you're shooting for now. I mean, yeah, they still have some bats in there. You still have Corbin Carroll. Ketel Marte, I hate that guy. He took away Kerrang's all-star bid, but, I mean, he's still there.
The most random guy in the league to hate. Like,
right? I mean, I just got to hate this guy, right? I just got to hate him. But Christian Walker's gone, so you lose a little thump in that lineup now. So you have pieces, but you don't have the pieces, right? You don't have Freddie Freeman. You don't have Mookie Betts. You don't have Shohei Ohtani. You don't have those big guys in your lineup there. So you're kind of like, okay, where do we address that's going to slow down that? And that's where you win.
Josh Naylor. Don't forget about Josh Naylor coming over. I mean, he's not like, I mean,
that's right. They got Josh Naylor. The Guardians are unloading. They're unloading for some reason. I don't know what's going on in Cleveland, but they were just one day like, well, let's just unload everybody. Jimenez, see ya. Naylor, see ya. Like, I don't know what they're holding off. Like,
who's that guy you love on the Guardians? I can't remember his name.
Stephen Kwan.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably too late now. I mean, it's not too late, but yeah, I mean,
I would get a trade package for him. He was a 300 hitter. Like, that'd be a pretty good. I mean, you could get a deal back for him.
Right. No, I mean, this kind of taking it back to the Brewers part of it. I mean, I'm shocked that at least. Like I said, the Brewers got something for him. That's a great thing. The Orioles, get nothing for him. Yeah. And then, like, all we're hearing all season long is, like, Blue Jays, Yankees, Red Sox. Like, he's going to an AL East team, basically. Is like, that's – and then, the Dodgers, the Mets were talking. Like, I would not have been shocked if the Dodgers got him or the Mets. Like, I was thinking because somebody's going to shell out the bag. But, I mean, credit – there might be 5 Diamondbacks fans in existence, but –
like Dr. Pepper fans, right? Dr. Pepper. There's I saw at one point Dr. Pepper was the number 2 soda in America. And I was like, I know one person who drinks Dr. Pepper. Like, who are the other people, right? I mean, how is this the number 2 soda brand? That's why
I remember when the Phillies played the Diamondbacks in Arizona there in the NLCS. Yeah, the NLCS. Just 2 years ago, not last season, but there was there were all this talk about there's tickets for $20. Like there wasn't a guaranteed sellout. Like there were open seats. So I'm not saying they have a bad fan, but it's not Arizona, like people say Arizona is one of those, it's not like a passion, like a diehard fan base. Like there's stuff to do in Arizona. Like it's out West, it's just a different, like the East Coast, I want to say is kind of like the craziest, your Midwest teams too. Like you have that like the Packers have such a following. But Arizona, like, and the fact that like this team with that market, like you can argue that market's probably smaller than Baltimore. It's probably smaller than Milwaukee. It's probably like that's a small, and like they're finding ways to bring, like they bring in Montgomery last year. Yeah, he didn't have the year that they wanted. I mean, Corbin Burns is like, I'm not just saying that because he just played for the Orioles, whatever. Like he's probably top 5, if not top 10. I mean, he's a top 5 right-hand arm in a rotation in my book. And like, he was a number 1 last year for the Orioles. Like he was number 1 on the Brewers. Like guy is a dog and it's like, like the Diamondbacks are just kind of like, you know what, we'll play around. We'll, and like you said, if you got to compete with a lineup like that, why not bolster the pitching staff? And I mean, I've seen, pitching can win you a champ if they have enough hitting, and the pitching's elite. Like you never know. It's interesting. They're at least making things interesting, and nobody really saw a team like that, outbidding or just winning over Corbin Burns than like the Blue Jays, who have more money than the country of Canada itself, or the Red Sox that'll shell out, or the Yankees or the Mets. Like that's. I mean, credit to them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, you look at, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like starting pitching to get you there. Look at the Brewers. Look at what the Brewers have been able to do with their starting pitching. I mean, it's been nothing but impressive there with what they've been. My fantasy team is getting rocked right now. I keep getting distracted here. Jaden Daniels is struggling tonight. We got software's freezing up on me over on this end. It's just a night right now. It's just a night.
The
right
Packers
now.
have started this for you.
The Packers have started this mess that is going on right now, and I've had enough. I've just had enough of it. John did say thoughts on the Golden Bat rule. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, we get what they're trying to do with the Golden Bat rule. It's trying to improve the game. We both said we didn't believe it was going to improve the game in the way they wanted it to, but that's what they wanted to do with the whole thing. So, I mean, we'll leave it at that. He also did say Dr. Pepper is better than Surge. So, what is Surge?
I've heard of it. I couldn't tell you what it is. I've literally just heard of it.
Oh, I'm unfrozen. There we go. I'm unfrozen there. Perfect. We're back. We're good. You said Dr. Pepper's better than Surge. I don't know what Surge is. I have no idea.
Is Surge still around? It's like you're talking vintage.
I've heard of Dr. Thunder. I've heard of Dr. Thunder. It's like an off-brand Mountain Dew.
I like that. That's a really nice. I like the noise, the sound of that.
I think it's like an off-brand Mountain Dew kind of thing, something like that.
Surge. I don't know if they still. I guess they still sell. I don't know. I'm seeing like.
Wait, no. Dr. Thunder is the off-brand Coke kind of thing. Mountain Lightning is the off-brand Mountain Dew. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Mountain Lightning. That's
Mountain Lightning. That stuff's clutch. That stuff gets you. It's not Mountain Dew, but it's good enough. It's good enough. It gets the job done.
I'm a sucker for the store brand stuff. Like store brand, like we have our grocery stores are like called Giant and Wise out here.
Giant and Wise.
And man, like
Y with a Y or Y spelled W-H-Y?
No, neither, right? It's W-E-I-S. Weiss, like it's Weiss. People will refer to it as Weiss, right? Like older people will say, "Oh, it's Weiss Markets," but like, give me that stuff. Like I bought peanuts earlier today, right? Store brand, 40 cents cheaper than what's that? That brand of peanuts. It's everywhere.
Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut, yeah. It's,
what the heck are they called, Mr. Peanut?
No, but you're on the right track. You're like,
what are those?
Planters.
Planters, that's what it is. Planters with Mr. Peanut. Now we're on the same page. Now
Give me a store brand. You save about 50 cents, whatever.
Like $50. You save about $50 on the
it adds up. It adds up.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Hey, we're on an off topic right now. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to get to an off topic here that I saw today when I was scrolling around. Weird laws in the state of Wisconsin. Okay, so these are some of the weird laws that I saw in the state of Wisconsin. So, the weirdest one in Brookfield, Wisconsin, using someone else's phone to make a prank phone call is against the law in Brookfield, Wisconsin. A city law in the books in Brookfield states you don't want to get caught using someone else's phone to make a prank phone call. No person shall willingly, knowingly permit any telephone under his control to be used to make or cause the telephone of another repeatedly or continuously to ring with the intent to harass any person. Against the law in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Hudson, Wisconsin, you have to have a screen door. That's basically what it's telling you. You got to have a screen door in Hudson, Wisconsin. But here's the weird ones. Sheboygan, Wisconsin. The city of Sheboygan municipal code includes making it illegal to water your lawn in a way that annoys your neighbor. So you can't water your lawn if it's going to annoy your neighbor there a little bit. If it's going to cause distress or annoyance to others, you cannot be watering your lawn like that. In Sun Prairie, there's a nuclear restriction. So in Sun Prairie, it's illegal to make, store, or deliver nuclear weapons. I don't understand why that's just in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I don't understand why that's not a known law everywhere that you cannot make, store, or deliver nuclear weapons. I don't understand.
I would think that's like not even a Wisconsin, like that's a United States law, right?
That has to be a law across the world. I don't understand why it's just a law in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, but it's a law. It's a law there. But here's the weirdest one of them all in the state of Wisconsin. In Wausau, which is just an hour from me. Wausau, Wisconsin, just an hour from me there. Snowballs. Throwing snowballs is against the law in Wausau, Wisconsin. So it says no person is allowed to throw or shoot any object, including without limitation, any arrow, stone, or other missile or projectile by hand or by any other means at any other person or in or into any building, street, sidewalk, alley, highway, park, playground, or any other public place within the city limits. You cannot throw it. They are putting a snowball on the same limitation as a freaking hand grenade is what I'm getting out of this. We cannot be throwing missiles. We cannot be throwing snowballs. They're in the same category. I don't understand why these are in the same category right now.
I'm mind blown. I mean, there's weird ones, but that's up there. That's
the best is it's an hour from me. I'm going into Wausau. And I'm going to do a drive-by of snowballs and just see what happens. See what happens.
That's a death wish almost. That's almost a death wish at that point.
Can you imagine? Like, what did you do to get in here? I threw some snowballs. You're a bad guy. Like, oh.
Don't mess with that guy.
I can't. It baffles me that they put in the same rule. Like, you cannot throw basically snowballs or missiles. Like, why is that the same? Why is that the same? John's got one, pets in cemeteries. I think I saw that one too, John. In Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Pets in cemeteries. Right there. It is illegal to take your pet to a cemetery in Sun Prairie. Dogs and cats are prohibited from entry into all cemeteries. However, there is exemption for special service animals such as guide dogs. So you can take your guide dog in there, but no cats or dogs inside of cemeteries.
I wonder what is it like them peeing on?
That could be. Grave? That could be. That could really. Maybe they had a problem with people walking their dogs and they would walk through the cemetery or something, and then they'd end up dropping a deucer, and then nobody would clean it up. And then the parks people, when they come to mow the lawns or something, there's just crap all over the ground.
I mean, that or the only other thing, when dogs start to just dig out of nowhere, they just, and maybe that became that's the only things I can kind of point to as.
Or they watched that movie Pet Sematary, and they're like, we ain't dealing with none of that in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. We're avoiding all of that and keeping them out.
Nightmares over.
That could be the mayor of Sun Prairie is like, I ain't dealing with this. All right, I watched this movie last night. Let's sign this baby into law. We're done with it. We're done with it. But I saw, those rules. I mean, some of those laws. I think I saw a TikTok. I saw a TikTok where the one guy mentioned one of the laws, and I was like, I want to look up the rest of them, see what's going on in the rest of the state of Wisconsin. And those are weird. Those are some weird laws that they got in the state. Nothing that you would have thought like, yeah, that'd be a law. Like no throwing snowballs, like basically putting a snowball on the same level as a missile. Like that baffled me a little bit, not gonna lie. But Aaron, I mean, we got about 5 or so minutes left here. We got about 5 minutes here. I mean, Aaron, anything else you got here that you wanted to talk about here to wrap up the show? We got, I mean, the NFL today, your Eagles got a big win today against the Cowboys. That wasn't much of a game.
No, and we don't.
I'll go over our picks. I got to get our picks.
Oh yeah,
I'll go over the picks.
I did want to get you on a 30-second because I not just from an Eagles perspective, like from an okay, let's say the Packers are in the same position, right? I'll make it equivalent to you there. Josh Jacobs is, I think Saquon's 101 yards away from Dickerson's single season record. But I mean, they really don't have anything to play for next week. Me personally, I'm not risking it. I don't care. Like he even came out. I mean, he said all the right things, right? It's about the team. You know, I didn't come here to break a record. I came here to try and win, whatever. But I mean, I get it's a big record, but man, like the guy's had injuries in his past, and you know what running back hasn't, right? But it's. Would you play him next week at all? Would you give him a chance to break the record? Because if he gets injured, then Sirianni's getting, I mean, cooked in the media. Like he's getting sauteed by everybody. So
yeah, no, I'm sitting him. I would sit him. Otherwise, you're pulling like a Cam Ward situation with Miami there. That was complete stupidity. I don't know how. If I'm in the shoes of Cam Ward over that weekend there, where I'm watching my team trying to win a bowl game and they're down by 1 late in the game, and you're standing there watching your backup quarterback try to get the job done when you had played, like it absolutely irritates me. Like it would irritate me if Saquon, I don't know if it'd irritate me as much, I guess. I was going to say if he started but then quit. I wouldn't say that. It irritated me that Cam Ward started then quit, right? He got the record, and then he just like, I'm done. I'm just going to sit.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit on the sideline and watch my team just go out here and struggle. Like, I would hate that. I would hate that. It would, if Saquon is the only one who plays, I'd be irritated. Like,
that would be when it's like you have Tanner McKee, like the offense, and like the offensive line is the second string. That would just be such a bad look.
That would irritate me. Now, if like you throw everybody out there because you're like, I don't want us to get rusty for a week, I'd be like, if you give me, it depends, right? Are you one of them guys who's like, oh, let's let him sit for an entire week? Or would you be like, oh, I'm going to let him go for 2 drives and then pull him out? I want him to get reps in, right? Because sometimes practice can only do so much to you. You don't want to get rusty going into the first week of the playoffs. So you're like, oh, maybe we'll give him 2 drives, see what happens, and just feed Saquon the ball for 2 straight drives and just see what he can do. I mean, that'd be an option, right? That'd be an option to roll.
That's the thing too. Like, I don't want to go too long on this, but you know, Jalen hasn't played in 2 weeks now, and he'll be off, you know, concussion protocol. So it's like, I think you got to play him. Like, I don't want to see them not play Jalen Hurts at all next week, because I think now you don't play him for 3 weeks and then you insert him into a playoff game, which is, you know, from 0 to 100 real quick to begin with.
Yep. I
think that's a mistake. So like, then it creates the whole like, well, if you have Jalen in there, why not put Saquon in there, make him more comfortable? Like, I see that, but I'm just putting Jalen in for probably 4 drives, something like that. Get his feet under him. But like, I mean, yeah, suppose Saquon, like, God forbid, but he gets hurt and like that and like doesn't get the record and gets hurt and doesn't play the playoffs, like that, you've not worth it at all.
That's what I would say. You're going to bring Jalen back. I'm playing him, no doubt, because I need him to get in rhythm. And I would start my starting offense. I'm throwing him out there for 2 drives. Because what rhythm are you getting Jalen Hurts in if you throw him out there with the second string wide receivers and the second string center, and Gainwell's your back? Like, yes, you're going to have Gainwell a little bit, but what are you getting him reps for? I mean, yes, he's getting in-game action, but at the same time, he's not getting reps with the dudes he's going to be out there with. So I would want him getting reps with the first team. And I honestly, I know injury's a risk, but I'm also one of them guys who I don't want my guys to sit for a week because I've seen what happens if guys sit for a week, an entire week. So I'd be okay with putting, them out there for a drive, maybe 2 drives. If the first drive, they walk down the field, they punch it in the end zone. Okay, maybe I'm thinking about just pulling them then because they put together a good drive, ended on a hot note. Don't let them go back out there, throw a pick or something, and then have that in the back of their head. So just let them drive, see what they do. If they score a touchdown on the first drive, pull them. Be done with it there. John said, I would sit him. He had a chance already. He only had 47 against the Browns, 66 against Cowboys, 65 Steelers prior weeks. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Yeah, he had his chances at it. I mean, it's a cool record, though. It's a cool record there, John. I mean, come on. And, John mentioned greatly there, 150 to 200 yards left on the board. I would agree. I would agree there. And then exactly like you're saying, imagine he gets hurt and they lose in the second round. People would be calling for the coach's head even more. I agree, but then you have the people that'd be calling for his head because they're like, why didn't you put him in there to get the record? Why didn't you let him get in there, right? I mean, you have 2 sides of a coin that you have to play with. And then it's like, well, what if he didn't get injured? What if he didn't get injured in that game? We didn't play him. He wasn't able to get the yards. You play the what if game. So, I mean, to me, I don't want to risk injury. I agree. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want my offense to get rusty either. And I want Jalen Hurts to get in-game reps. So he's been out. I don't want him to sit for 3 weeks because guess what? You bring him back in the first round of the playoffs against a good defense. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the Packers or if they're going to have the Commanders, but guess what? Both those defenses, yes, I don't want to say the Packers right now because they didn't get after Sam Darnold, but you would expect both those defenses to come out fiery. And if you're a little rusty, you might fall into a hole because we know Jayden Daniels and Jordan Love on a good day. Those 2 offenses can get hot and they can make big plays and they can put you in a hole. Do you want to risk being put in a hole because your quarterback's rusty? And that's where you kind of got to play that kind of favor there with Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. And we're going to talk more about this week in the NFL. We're going to talk about that more on Wednesday here on the show. We're going to get into the complete slate, everything we saw, everything like that, give an update on the NFL or the standings, see where everything lies. Right now, the Commanders are losing to the Falcons 17-13, but I believe the Commanders got the ball back. Jay Daniels has got me 15 points, so we're going good in fantasy right now, so all is good on my end. But with that, Aaron, anything else you got? We're going to wrap it up here for the day.
No, I mean, all the people hanging on to those teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. I mean, your season's quickly diminishing. So, I mean, I think the Packers make the playoffs more than the Eagles probably even. But those years where you don't, you completely miss the playoffs, it's like, damn, like that's like, that's rough. Yep. I remember Aaron Rodgers last year. Like, you had to have thought, like, oh man, this just like it's like. You're just not invited to the party. Like, you just feel like, and especially if you're close. Like, if you're close and you miss, that's like, that hurts. But, I mean.
I agree.
Regular season's coming to an end, so.
Yep, and it's getting spicy. I mean, we're going to look at it on Wednesday, but the AFC playoff picture, the Bengals played themselves back into that picture now. The NFC, we got the Commanders and Packers trying to figure out who's going to be 6, who's going to be 7. It is wild. It is a wild finish here. It's the wild card. That's why it's called the wild card. It's a wild finish. So with that, that's about all we got for today. It was a great show today. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to be talking more Packers on Wednesday, talking about what's coming up. Well, a little bit more of a recap of this game once we get our heads wrapped around it and what we saw. We're going to talk about Badger basketball. They're going to be back in action pretty soon here. Maybe some more transfer portal talk. Maybe the Xavier Lucas thing will figure itself out. We can talk about that a little bit more. All kinds of stuff to get into here Wednesday on the show. But with that, for Aaron and myself, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you guys back here on Wednesday